What's up, everybody? Sam Smyers here. So I want to try something a little bit different. I often see videos where people like review other videos or comments on other videos while like watching them. And so I want to try something like that for like music production, for like audio type of stuff. I saw that James Hype posted a few videos recently. Seems like he's like posting some streaming videos of him like in the studio or like breaking out some tracks. And there was one that he posted where he reviewed a remix of Sprinter by Central C that he posted a video on his TikTok, and that video went like viral. Has like 1.7 million views on it, I think, at the time that he did this, or at the time that I'm doing this video. So I figured that I'd kind of watch this video and provide some commentary on his breakdown and see if there's any kind of like things that I notice about him going through his track. So if you enjoy this type of content, this type of videos, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. And then also like let me know if there's any other videos that I should check out and go over. Maybe there's any other artists that are doing breakdowns and just explain some more things in kind of like my way of explaining things.
Let me dive straight in. All right, so I managed to get the acapella just by Googling it, and it's really good.
Take a look at these diamonds, wrong as a life for squinting, can't just stare.
So the breakdown starts with the acapella just...
If you ever want to like find acapella, it's really easy. You just like search on YouTube. There's a lot of people that like extract the acapella using whatever software. A lot of them are pretty people, I don't know what they use, but when I extract acapellas, I usually just use like lala.ai, and that one seems pretty good. So that's just where he found the acapella and then made this like bootleg remix.
How it is. And then the next thing that happens is this crazy synth. Now, this is the part that everybody knows from this remix. I'm going to break it down exactly how I made it. So basically, I'm using Ableton Granulator, which is granular synthesis. Now, what I've actually done...
So if you're not familiar with this synth, it is a Max for Live device. I believe with Ableton Live 10, it comes with Ableton Live 10. If you have any previous versions of Ableton Live, I think you have to download it from the Ableton website, but it's just like a granular synth. If you don't have Ableton, you can use any other granular synth, but this is the one that comes with Ableton Live. So go ahead and just like use that one. I have a whole video about how to use Granulator II, so go ahead and check that out. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. It's probably on the screen right now. So check that out if you don't know how to use it. I know that James Hype, I've watched a couple of these videos, and I know that for like that song Say Yeah, and number one he did with Major Lazer, he uses Granulator II. So it seems like he's like a really big fan of using this synth. So if you do want to create any type of lead sounds using like kind of like in the James Hype stereo hype style, then definitely check out this Granulator.
Is I grabbed the acapella and dropped it onto Granulator, which sounds a bit crazy, but you can use the weirdest sound source to make the coolest sounds with Granulator. So I'm just going to try and recreate something similar as a demonstration right now. So I would take the grain size quite high up, get rid of the release, and you can hear already it doesn't sound a million miles away from the finished product. So I'll then play with the pitch a little bit.
So I'll show you how to do this real quick. If you go into Granulator, I have the Max for Live. If you go into Max for Live, Max Instrument, you've got the Granulator 2. Double click, load it into my MIDI track, and then here is like an acapella.
Changed my mind, I was halfway.
The Sprinter acapella, so I can just like drag it into Granulator 2 and check out the, I'm not going to go through like a whole tutorial on this, but I have it because I already have a tutorial. You can just check that out on my channel. The grain size is almost like the loop size of the little segment it's catching. And I'll just like zoom in a bit so you can see it a bit easier. So here's the grain size. I'm increasing the knob. It shrinks that loop, and then I decrease it. It makes it bigger.
Irish fairy, let go.
Maybe try a different part of the track. You get the idea. You can get 6 sounds out of this. So going back to the actual synth that was used in the track, you can see I've got these very specific settings on the grain size, on the release, and on the pitch as well. So a couple of things that I've done in this is all my automation on this. So I've actually automated the
in Ableton, to get all of these automation lanes to show up, this is just like showing all the different automation that is happening on the track. You can get these all to pop up if you go into this view in Ableton, where if you go into, so I'm going to hit A on my keyboard, there's just like a little plus sign. So if I like do some automation, like change the grain size, and then I automate something else, like, I don't know, this one here, that's resonance, I guess. And then I click on the little plus sign and go back here, go back to, let's see, view. I believe I can just view, show automated parameters only, grain size. So now you can see like my automation parameters. So if you do want to just like view all of your automation like that, then you can click on these automation lines to view them all one by one. I usually don't view them like this because I feel like sometimes it can get a little messy with all these like automation lanes showing up. But it's also like easy just to see if you want to view like what is happening with all your automation, because you might be like automating a filter, automating like reverb and doing all this stuff. And it's just like, sometimes it's easier just to see everything that you're doing, just to make sure you're not like messing things up.
Tuning. So it sounds like it skips between notes, even though it sort of stays on the same note. So you can hear, we go from, as the pitch changes on the granulator. It happens again later on. Sounds like it changes note.
So that automation he's doing there, you could easily just play a different note on the keyboard if you wanted to.
The other thing I'm doing is I'm automating the grain size. So it sounds like it sort of slows down a little bit. Like that. It's like it's slowing down.
That's almost like a pitch down effect. I thought that like when I heard that, it sounded like you could just do like a pitch down, but that's kind of cool that he's doing it by just like expanding that loop range on the granulator. So he's just making that grain size a bit bigger to create that effect.
And that's the grain size getting smaller or longer. I'm not sure. But if I just loop this bit and play it, I'll show you what you can do with the grain size. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. Other processing on this, not too much to be honest. Yeah, we've got some basic EQ. This is a high pass filter, and then there's a low pass filter.
I've actually never seen that wow plugin. That's a new one.
And then this is mid-side saturation just on the top end.
So I want to point out this audio effect rack. Now in Ableton doesn't like handle sends and returns the same way as like Logic or like Pro Tools. They're usually like when I want to add reverb to something, like if I'm in Pro Tools or Logic, then I'll create like a bus track and then create like a send track on my original track, and then just like send part of my signal from my track into that bus track, and then I'll have like a reverb. But with Ableton, there's like a limit to the amount of sends and like returns that you can create. So the workaround is to create these things called audio effects racks. And you can see that what he's doing here is he has the original plus like a layer that has the frequency shifter on with the ring mode turned on. And instead of like creating another bus track and putting the frequency shifter on there and then sending his original track to that frequency shifter track, he's creating the audio effect rack. And this is like something that I do all the time. I don't use any of the sends and returns in Ableton because I think there's like a max of like 12 or something really small.
Frequency shifter. So this is ring modulation, which is an additional layer. If I play it through by itself, it's like adding like extra dirt to the sound on the drop. There's some reverb being automated. There's some delay, some more delay, and then side. I've
actually been using Ableton's Echo a lot more because this came in, I think, in Ableton Live 10, the Echo instead of the delay. So I don't know if you've been using the delay, check out that Echo because there's a lot more like parameters you can use, which is pretty cool.
Came from the kick. So it's pretty straightforward. It's just a really quality sound to start off with. And that is the iconic sound from this track. If we move down, we got the bass groove, the kick and the bass. It's pretty simple again. I mean, the sounds are really good and they work well together. This is an Evo Sounds kick that...
Shout out Zen World.
See the file names changed. So I think I've maybe shortened it or something like that. And then the bass.
So this is also something that I haven't really done too much, but I probably didn't even like realize that you could do this, is you can create, just like how you can create an audio effect rack, you can create an instrument rack. So in Ableton, you can see he has multiple instruments on one track. So he has an instrument track, and then he has Serum, and then he has that layered with something else. So he's going to talk about that.
Again, it's an Evo Sounds patch that I've made it my own. I think I added some extra harmonics into it, and I added a bit of a pitch effect on it. The other thing I've got running here is I've got some vinyl noise running alongside the bass. So if you listen to it by itself, and then that plays with the bass to make this.
So let me just explain that real quick. If I have a MIDI track, here I just created a MIDI track, and let's go ahead and drop in like Serum. Let's put in Serum into that MIDI track. Now I can right click and I can group this and then click here. And this is where you can open it up, and now I can layer it with some other things. So I can now drag in, let's say I want to drag in Granulator as well. So, because that's just what he was using. Let's try putting that in there. And that is going to be in max for that. So drag this in. Now I have Serum layered with Granulator, and now if I start adding in like MIDI onto my instrument track, it's going to play whatever I'm doing in Serum and also in Granulator. So instead of having to like create multiple layers, like duplicate this and then create, add on like a different instrument. And even though, because like if you're just like playing the same notes and stuff, you can just all create this instrument rack onto one MIDI track.
And it adds some extra grit to the sub bass because it's quite a low bass. If you look at these two together, I've used the ShaperBox to sidechain the bass, and they're like...
So that was really quick. He showed the ShaperBox. If you don't have ShaperBox, then I definitely recommend getting ShaperBox or Kickstart 2. That's the latest version. So Kickstart 2 is like one of my favorite plugins to use. It's just so simple. It added this new thing with a band where you can only sidechain like frequencies underneath this band. I could just sidechain the frequencies under 200. And when James Type opened up his ShaperBox, you could see that he had this turned on. So he was just like filtering off anything under around like 200 or so. The bass that he's using is already pretty subby. Like there isn't too much high end. It might not have been necessary to use this if you had something that was already like pretty subby. But if you do have like a bass that has a lot of top end, like a slap style bass, like if you're making like a slap house track or like a commercial EDM track where you have this like very bright bass and you don't want to chop off like that top end, then you can use like this band here. And I'm still trying to figure out like ShaperBox 3. It's a little bit more complicated than using like Kickstart. So let's see, what is a sidechain? Let me see. Let's go ahead and just do sidechain. And then I can add in a band and choose where I want this to be cut off. So I can go like this, and then it's just gonna, I believe it's just gonna sidechain everything below like 200 or wherever I set this band.
They're like perfectly carved out for each other. So if you look at the waveform of these two playing together.
This volume shaper plugin is also available in that whole ShaperBox thing. So you don't need to use a different plugin if you do have all that ShaperBox 3.
You'll see that the bass and the kick, they never overlap, but they always sort of fill the space in between each other. So it's a really solid low end groove in this track. Next thing I've got is the drums. Proper tech house drums in this one, like really short, really hard transients. So it's mostly MIDI. I've got one loop in here, and what I've done on this is something that somebody asked me how I did in a previous video. So if you listen to this loop, normally it's like a breakbeat.
So when you are using loops, I notice this a lot when people are doing tech house. And a lot of times when you get like all these loops off of Splice, they have just like so much background stuff in them that it's almost like unnecessary. And you want the loop sound to be very like tight. Well, you can put your warp mode onto beats mode, and then preserve transients, and then put it on this arrow that just goes this way. And then what it's going to do is going to put transient markers on each of the transients in this loop. And it's going to create these segments. So it's going to create this segment here to here. And this 100 is going to be like a little envelope thing. And if you decrease it, it's going to decrease the decay on each of these little segments. So it's going to just chop off, like essentially just chop off the end of this little transient. So it's going to make the sound a lot shorter. That's kind of like a basic way to explain it. It's just going to like make the decay a lot shorter of each of these transients. And that's what he's doing, is he's taking each of those like transient hits and making them a lot shorter.
But the way I've got it in the track is like this. So you hear how it's gone like really short. Basically, if you stick Ableton Warp in beats mode, transients, and then put it on that top one, listen to what this does now. You can like remove all the tails off the drum hits, which is really good for those like tech house drums. A couple of other bits I've got in the track. I got some, it's white noise, and I've used ShaperBox to shape it. Pretty much the same thing again there. I've got a couple of serum patches here. Like a pad, which is like a string. More kind of string sounds, and then there's some more stuff in the build up. Really basic pitch rise. That's a chord that I've automated to the wah 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 wah.
I think that is like the pitch LFO changing that he's talking about. That chord sounds like I think it's a Fisher or Chris Lake song where Take It Off, I think, that has that chord in there that kind of has that like pitch LFO modulation.
Whatever that's called. Same, super resonant low synth. This is something I actually recorded from a piece of analog gear in my studio. Basically made a riser with the cutoff and using the resonance really high on a synth. That's pretty much everything that is in this track.
So yeah, going through this, it just seems like he has some other like atmospheres, some risers, effects, things like that. But the primary things, like especially with Tech House, he's got that lead he made with Granulator. He's got that bass, like subby bass in the kick, and then those Tech House drums. It seems like he uses also, James Sipes seems like he uses ShaperBox a lot. And it must be just like something that like part of his workflow, he likes to use that plugin a lot. I haven't used it too much. I tend to just use like Kickstart 2 because I can't figure it. I have to like sit down and like learn it, but definitely like check out ShaperBox if you have it. Like maybe experiment with some of the like the volume shaper part of that ShaperBox 3.
So as you can see, the project's a bit of a mess because as of recording this, I haven't actually finished it yet. But good news, by the time you're watching this, I have finished the track, and I'm about to give you a link to download it before anyone else has it. The link is right here.
So there you can go. You can download the track if you want to grab it.
I've also just made a sample pack of every sound that I made when I was creating this remix, and it's available now on jameshype.com/store. And even if you've got no money, there is a free sample pack on there as well.
So yeah, by the way, you can go to his store and like he takes a lot of his samples from his songs and then puts them into like these mini sample packs, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I really just want to like go through that video and watch it and just point out some things that I saw that were interesting. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like, and also please subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. If you do want me to make more videos like this, just like kind of going through and commenting on any other like audio videos or any other like music producer videos, go ahead and just let me know down in the comments which video. If you do want to grab any of my Serum preset packs, head on over to store.smyers.com.